Boys, I really fucked up and I need you guys to learn from my mistakes. So if you guys watched the last video on the channel, you will know that about a week ago, I took the truck out to Barstow because me and Down for Mobbing went pre-running for a night run that we're gonna be hosting in less than 2 weeks from now. Now that trip was the first time I had taken the truck out in a long time, and I had a lot of new goodies I wanted to test out, so I was going kind of hard out there. And I mean, everything was going good for most of the day up until like the last few miles of this course run that we were doing. I started to hear this aggressive, just like grinding kind of slapping noise coming from the engine bay, and I got really, really worried. Upon popping the hood, we realized it was my fan hitting the shroud. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. I have like brand new motor mounts. They're only like 10 months old. These Poly Martech motor mounts, only 10 months old. There should be no engine sag or anything, so I don't know why my fan's hitting all of a sudden. So then a couple nights ago, I decided to just climb under my truck randomly and just start looking around, poking around, see if I could figure out what was going on. Because, like I said, the trip's coming up and I don't want to be bashing on it when something's not right. So after climbing under the truck, this is what I found. I looked under the driver's side and thought, oh my God, look at the little ear here on the perch for the motor mount is like twisted sideways. It's not straight up and down holding the motor mount like it should be. I thought, that's weird. How does this slide out? Like, it's still pretty stiff. It's not like the bolt's loose or anything. Ugh. So I'm like, how did that even slide down and out like that? Then I start to look up behind this bolt, and I notice, oh my God, the actual bolts that hold the motor mount to the truck are completely gone on both sides. Now, I know it's kind of hard to see under here. I'm going to try to get the best shots I can for you. But long story short, the two bolts that go through the motor mount, the Poly motor mount, and attach to the frame welded motor mount are completely gone. Here's the passenger side. You can see the bolts right there and there. And you go to this side and it's completely missing and completely missing. So then I have to assume at some point during this Barstow trip, the nuts fell off and the bolts worked themselves completely out, which means this side of the engine was free floating and not attached to the truck at all. So anytime I went off any floater, through any whoops, through any razor chop, off of anything that would give the truck a zero gravity feeling, the engine was completely lifting off this mount and slamming back down. So I think over time it's just hitting, rotates this out of the way. You can see there's like a crease here, so this is like shifted. I don't know if anything's bent. I don't know if anything's broken yet. I'm kind of concerned, but this is what we're addressing today. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's as easy as just jacking the engine back up and getting new bolts put in, because you could see this ear right here on the back side is kind of bent backwards and down compared to this side. I'm hoping this side is fine, but again, things aren't really lining up all that well. So our goal today is to jack the engine back up, try to get this bent back, the ear put back up, and see if everything hopefully still lines up. If not, we're going to be in a big bucket of shit because I have less than 2 weeks to get this fixed before the night run. Needless to say, this could have been a lot worse. It could have completely dropped the engine down onto the steering rack. It could have cracked the whole bottom of the engine. Then I would be out an engine altogether. So yeah, it could have been a lot worse, but I'm still trying to wrap my head around how this even happened. When I first put these in, I am super anal about torque specs. So I know I torqued everything down properly, and I know I even revisited it X amount of miles after driving on it and retightened everything because, again, I'm just really anal about stuff like this happening. And sort of leading into the how-to, we're gonna fix this today, I talked to a handful of companies and shops and people that I trust, and a handful of them have said, I have literally never seen this happen. Like, I have never heard of this happening. I've never seen this happen. I've never seen those nuts back themselves off and those bolts eject themselves from the top. So, boys, Dime is making very unique content out here. But yeah, so back to talking to the shops. I talked to a lot of these shops and I asked them, like, what do you guys think I should do to fix this? Like, is this something that needs to be completely cut off and re-weld a new one on? Is the metal compromised now that it's been bent? Like, even if I do get it back up into its original shape, is it gonna be able to hold and support that engine weight now, or is it just done? Does it need to be gusseted? Like, what are we doing here? And a lot of these trusted guys said, you should be fine just bending that ear back, and if everything lines up, you're good to run it. If that is the case, if everything lines up and I'm able to bend it back, I think I'll still try to get some custom gussets under each of those ears to hold them up, because I'm kind of worried about them being compromised now. And I just need to get these two things out there because I don't want the comments to be blown up with this. The past couple days I've been posting this problem on my Instagram. I've been hearing a lot of it, and let's just address it. First of all, as far as gusseting goes, the DMZ gusset kit that they sell, that is not for this problem. That DMZ gusseting kit goes around the welds that are on the frame holding the welded perch on, because in the early second gen years like 05 and 06, it was a very compromised area that could crack and the whole perch would bust into the frame of the truck and drop the engine. That's not where we're having problems. I've checked all those welds. All the welds are fine. This is a later second gen year. Will I still probably do it? Maybe down the road, yeah, but that has nothing to do with this problem right now. So please don't start recommending the DMZ gusset kit for this problem. Second, this has nothing to do with the Martech motor mounts. I had a lot of people saying, oh, time to switch to solid off-road motor mounts, time to switch to, like, dude, the Martech motor mounts are completely fine. They're still intact. Everything's still there. The only thing that happened is the stock bolts themselves disappeared. So the motor mounts are still fine. It was no fault of the motor mounts. There's no need to switch to new motor mounts. Don't suggest I switch to solid off-road motor mounts. That's not going to fix this problem. That was not the cause of this problem. So now that we got those two out of the way, I know I yapped a lot, certified yapper over here, but let's get into this and hopefully we can fix it today, because if we can't, I'm going to be so fucking stressed the next week. Alrighty, boys, we're getting up close and personal with each other. So I'm on the passenger side right now trying to take those two bolts out. One, because I need to now go to a special fastener store and get new bolts and nuts for the driver's side. And two, because I think I need these off to be able to lift the engine evenly to get that side figured out, or at least get it off so I can straighten it and drop it back down. These ones are kind of concerningly loose too. I mean, they weren't like finger loose, but they weren't as tight as I would like to see these. You know what? Now that I'm taking these off, I was completely wrong in the beginning of the video. These feed from the bottom up. So that just means the nuts started to loosen and the bolts were slowly starting to drop out of the bottom until the nuts were completely off the threads and they just dropped straight out. The biggest thing I've been trying to wrap my head around the entire time of knowing about this is how in the hell would bolts work their way up and out? Like, I mean, I guess they could go up and then get pinched and then it would go zero gravity, move up, get pinched. But this makes a lot more sense that they're fed from the bottom. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It makes absolutely no freaking sense. Why would they do that? But it makes more sense in the context of how this happened. Now, something I was super stoked about when I did these Martech motor mounts is how easy these Martech motor mounts are to replace the poly bushings for next time. Yep, see, that's how it happens right there. Bolts just fall out. But yeah, I was excited because with the Martech motor mounts, when it does come time to replace the bushings, they get worn out or whatnot. It is so much easier than the stock ones, because you just have to take one big through bolt out and you could pull both pucks out, put both pucks in and drop it in without having to take off the entire motor mount like you do with the stock ones, which is an absolute nightmare. An absolute nightmare. I think I posted the video of me putting these in. I'm almost positive I did. If you want to see me struggle and get frustrated, go watch that video, because taking the stock motor mounts out is a complete bitch. Let's hope I don't have to tear too much of this apart and relive all that horror again today. Let's hope I can get away with taking minimal amounts of stuff off. What I'm gonna try to do is go to the specialty fastener store and just get all new bolts and nylock nuts for all 4 points, 2 on each side, so we don't run into this problem again. I want nylock. It's my fault for not using Loctite when I reinstalled these. That's my bad. Again, I want you guys to learn from this video. Make sure you check all your nuts and bolts, especially critical ones, torque them all down, double check them after X amount of miles, and Loctite the shit that definitely does not need to be coming out. Alrighty, well, I pulled out the entire motor mount from the driver's side just to double check everything, make sure everything looks good. If we deconstruct it here, the actual mount plate itself, totally fine, dude. No fractures, no bending, no warping, no cracking. It looks totally fine to me. The only thing is just that little rub rash right there from when it was unbolted and I was off-roading and it was just kind of wiggling in place. But other than that, dude, all these welds held up totally fine. Whole mount looks perfect. So onto this top bushing, the only thing I'm noticing is it's a little more squished on this side. You can kind of see as I rotate it on the bottom. It's a little squished on this side, so I don't know if that's over the past 10 months of it having sat in that position, or if it's from the past week of the engine sagging, it being crushed on that side. That we're gonna have to figure out. The bolt and the sleeve are what I was mostly concerned about. I wanted to make sure that these were still straight and not like warped or bent or cracked or anything, and both are totally straight, totally fine. And now this bushing, I think it's the bottom one, I forget now, but it's kind of the same story. You can see by my thumb here, it's a little more squished than the top side here. And again, I don't know if that's from 10 months of being ran, or if it's just from the past week of it sitting a little cattywampus. So overall, the whole system held up really, really well, and it was super easy to take out. Literally all I had to do, given that these two already fell out, was take out this through bolt in the center, and the whole thing dropped out. So now here's a shameless plug. If you guys are doing some off-roading and you don't quite want to make that switch to solid motor mounts and get all that vibration and stuff that you get with solid motor mounts, and you're looking for a good in-between from stock to solid, this is it right here. The Martech Engineering Poly motor mounts. Absolutely love them. Shout out to you, Nick. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to grab those stock through bolts that were missing on this side from the passenger side, try to mock everything up, because I am running into quite like a weird alignment problem with this plate and the welded on mounts. So we need to go ahead and try to figure out why we have that problem. And hopefully it's nothing serious. I think I'm just going to try to bolt this up to the mount first and then try to drop the through bolt and everything in and have the engine rest onto it. Versus the other way, what we were doing is this was still attached to the engine. We were trying to line that plate up with the frame plate. So maybe if we kind of reverse engineer this, we can get it to work. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Alrighty, well, I used the two from the passenger side, got it mocked up on that side. Luckily, this mount has sort of like a board to it, so there's adjustment to slide it up or down, depending on where you need it. So I think that's probably why it wasn't lining up at first. It probably had worked itself all the way to the like lowest down setting. So now that we took everything out, kind of re-mocked it back up, I have the through bolt in, these two bolts holding it in all loosely, of course, because we're gonna have to take all this back out to put in the new hardware. But it looks like everything still lines up pretty well. I just need to get those two perches that come off the ears here and line those up and bend these tabs as needed. I mean, knock on wood, we're not quite at the finish line yet, but it's looking very promising. Okay, so as far as those ears go for these perches, I don't know if... Sick. I don't know if they were actually bent out of shape or if that's the position they were supposed to be in. I think that is probably going to be... I'm going to run to the specialty fastener hardware store, pick up all new bolts and nuts, and try to button all this together, drop the engine back down on its own weight, and hopefully everything lines up. Hopefully everything's sitting comfortably. Hopefully the fan's not hitting, and hopefully we can get this truck back on the road again. Alrighty, we just got back from the specialty fastener store where I just brought in the old one, said match this as close as you can, because Toyota likes to pick bolts and nuts and all kinds of hardware that nobody has except them, which sucks. So I said go ahead and just try to match this as close you can in dimensions, you know, as close as you can get it is fine. So we got us a new set of hardware, new nuts, new nylock nuts, so we don't have this problem again, new bolts, a washer. The only thing we're missing is they put these little ears on them, so when it's under the truck, you can tighten it from the top, and this ear will turn and hit, and it'll hold it in place, so you don't have to hold both ends while you tighten it, but we'll make it work. It's worth it to have the nylock and all new hardware. So with the ears bolted in now, the side I was mostly worried about is actually fitting pretty well. From front to back, it's touching perfectly fine, making full contact. But the side I wasn't worried about, it's making contact in the back already, and as I drag my finger forward, it starts to gap out. Right here you can see I can kind of get my finger between. Maybe it's because I'm lifting from further back this way, it's a little bit higher. Maybe when I drop it, it'll even out, or maybe I just need to take a mallet to this and hopefully pull this, just got mud in my eye, forward and up. But we haven't dropped the engine down on it yet, so let's go ahead and try that. Okay, so the passenger side is still lined up totally fine. We don't have to worry about that side. On this side, I mean, it's not full weight yet, but it dropped a lot of it, so I would assume it's got like a good amount of weight. There's still a slight little gap on the front end where I showed you, but it's still making full contact everywhere else. So I don't know if that gap is that big of a problem. And it's weird because this mount's not even like bent backwards to where it would give that gap. So I think if it's secured everywhere else, if all the bolts and nuts are tight, it's still making contact everywhere, it shouldn't be a problem that there's just that little bit right there. I might still try to just get a punch and kind of hammer it up a little bit, like chisel it up. Or maybe just grab, I don't know where they went, over there, a pair of pliers and try to just wedge it. But everything's looking good so far. I'm going to try to button most of it up, if not all of it up, and then catch up with you guys and see kind of how we're sitting with it. So with the engine on its own weight, sitting on all the mounts and the perches and everything all by itself, no jack, busted out the level, and it looks like she's pretty level again. I think it's ever so slightly higher on this side, and I think, again, that's from all the wear of it, like sitting cattywampus and weird for like a week and a half. Like the bushings looked a little worn and a little lopsided, so maybe I just reach out to Nick and get new bushings to swap in on that side, and it'll be perfect. But for now, it's fine. It's sitting level. I reached underneath. The fan's not hitting the shroud anymore. It's close, but it's not hitting. And I think it's close just with the new motor mount stuff. It just kind of lowers it a little bit, but it's even on all sides. It's not touching anymore, so I think we should be good. Boys, I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was a lot worse than it actually was. I remember telling people, like, it's not as easy as just, you know, swapping those two bolts back in, which it was, essentially. Sure, I had to dismantle the whole mount again, reposition it, and then get it bolted back up, but I thought that the support ears were smoked. I thought I was going to need to cut that off and get like a whole new one welded on. I didn't think I was going to luck out with it being as easy as just bending it back, but it turns out we're fine. We're all good. So we got new hardware in there. We got nylock nuts, so hopefully we don't run into this problem again. I have the two spare bolts and nuts back there, which I'm going to hold on to and keep in my truck just in case. I'm probably going to spend this next week driving it around, try to get it as rattled and rough as I can so I can go ahead and retighten it before we get to the night run, because I do not want this happening again, especially on the night run. So yeah, needless to say, I'm super thankful and super stoked that this project was a lot easier and not as bad as I thought it was. Luckily, we did not mess up the engine worse in Barstow, and we're going to call it wraps on this project. Believe it or not, there's still stuff to be done before the night run. Wheel bearings are smoked on this side. I ordered a new set through Tacoma World a couple weeks ago, and there's been some supply chain issues. I've been texting back and forth with the guys, so stay tuned, because hopefully I'll be making a video before the night run of me swapping those in as well, and then the truck should be, hopefully there's nothing else that needs to get done before the night run. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want information on the night run, go ahead and check out my Instagram or Down for Mobbing's Instagram. I'm posting all kinds of updates on there. There's a video on the channel right now of us pre-running that. We're gonna be dropping the map on Instagram for you guys to open up, download, check out, see the course itself. All the information's on Instagram, so go check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would consider us blessed in this episode, and catch you guys in the next one.
Welcome to my party, we're just getting started. A life is a dream or a nightmare.